Today's review is going to be of a movie that didn't necessarily break box office records, but is doing pretty well on DVD and Blu-ray right now, and that is, of course, Dredd, with Carl Urban as Dredd. First and foremost, I just want to, make it absolutely clear, I am in no way, shape, or form like an expert on the Judge Dredd comics. I've, read a few, but, I'm sure there's people who will correct me where I'm wrong anywhere in this review. And I wanted to talk about the movie because it's a pretty awesome movie, really. But first, I think it's time we reflect a little bit, take a trip back in the past to 1995, and talk about Judge Dredd, starring Sylvester Stallone. This is the first big screen adaptation of the character. Not really loved by all. Kind of I guess you could say, a hated movie, really. Especially by people who admire the comics so much. They thought it pretty much butchered it. And, if you read up a little bit, you can kind of see why. I mean, first and foremost, even the cover. Like, look, he's not even wearing the friggin' mask. Like, that's the first clue there. Judge Dredd rarely takes off the mask. So there's that. I mean, God forbid we should be deprived of Sylvester Stallone's mug. So there's that, and the whole plot is kind of silly or whatever. But it's kind of, to me at least, it's kind of a guilty pleasure. I do not hate the movie. I kind of like it. I kind of see it more on the level of like a really cheesy Stallone movie. And honestly, I'm a fan of Sylvester Stallone. I really am. And basically the whole movie is just him, running around. You're trying to understand what he's saying. A lot of it's just like, I am the law. It's that's my Sylvester Stallone impression. But it's a kind of a fun movie, really. I mean, you got a good cast. There's Stallone, there's Diane Lane, there's Max von Sydow, who I love, and Armand Assante. He's honestly, I think he's great as a villain, a cheesy, over-the-top villain, but a great villain nevertheless. So there's that, and there's Rob Schneider. But it's kind of an okay movie if you don't, hold the comics in such a high regard. And maybe part of it is kind of like nostalgia for me because, it came out when I was a kid, and there's the video games and the toys and everything. And I think kind of, when you think about it, it may actually be one of the last R-rated movies to be directed for kids and marketed at kids, because there's usually like the Alien movies, Aliens specifically, Terminator 2. They always had like Kenner action toys and stuff like that, and you don't see that these days. And that was kind of the last time I saw something like that was with Dredd. So maybe it's partly that, partly a little bit nostalgia. But anyway, there is a new version of Dredd in town, and that's this updated 2012 version with Carl Urban as the main character. Not once does he take off the mask, by the way. And honestly, even though I hold that other version in a sort of high regard, at least I like it, this blows it out of the way. It really does. It is a really awesome action movie. I am kind of, upset that I didn't see it in theaters and in 3D. It would have been pretty cool, but it was just one of those movies, I don't know, just it came in and out so fast that you didn't even notice it, really. And plus, I think it came out in October. It would have been a much better suited action summer blockbuster, but, whatever. What I think is interesting about the movie, and again, I'm not an expert on Judge Dredd, it takes place all in one day. So it is kind of like a whole, day in the life of Judge Dredd, and a particularly bad day that he's having. Being locked down in one of Megacity's complexes by Big Mama, the drug overlord who wants him dead, because they have this whole conspiracy and all this, cover-up and all this corruption regarding this drug slow-mo that makes everything cool and in slow motion and bright and colorful and, classic futuristic drug. So there's that, and basically the whole movie's everybody's trying to fucking kill Judge Dredd, and he doesn't let them. Spoiler alert: he doesn't let them. And it's a pretty badass movie, and he's teamed up, of course, with his rookie psychic girl who makes a good contribution to the movie, and I thought she was a pretty cool character. And a lot of the action scenes are really good, especially when Big Mama has that, Gatling gun just going, and then like he's like, running away from it, and that was pretty cool. And just in general, I think Karl Urban is a real badass in the role. He never breaks character. He's not like, when you compare him to Stallone, some people won't even give that the time of day to even like compare it to the two. But I think Stallone showed a little bit too much vulnerability as Judge Dredd. A little too human, and that's kind of not what he was about. Judge Dredd, at least the way, I understand it, the way I've seen it in this movie, he's supposed to be a little bit more unflinching, so you can't really read him that well, especially if you're only seeing, this much of him or whatever. So I thought Karl Urban, he did a really dedicated job to the character, really made him a fucking badass, and that's kind of what we want to see, and that's not really something you see too much in action movies. I mean, like, not in at least the same kind of way. I mean, of course, there's the go-to guys for action, and a lot of them are, like, borderline straight-to-video action movies, like pretty much anything with, Jason Statham. No offense to him. But this one's a lot more brutal, a lot more intense, and a lot grittier, I guess. So it is kind of a more intense ride. And more of like something, the way I kind of look at it is, I know it has Judge Dredd as a character based on the comics, but it is kind of like a classic cop movie, like kind of a, with the drug overlord stuff and the corruption stuff. It's kind of like one of those, Training Day kind of movies, I guess. So like, the whole thing is, you got one day, you gotta train the rookie, and all this shit happens. So I thought it was pretty cool. It's kind of like a nice play on the genre, and like kind of like maybe a weird comparison, but like you can compare Outland, Sean Connery in Outland, where it's basically high noon. So a sci-fi cowboy movie or western, I guess. So this one is kind of like sci-fi, like L.A. Riot, cop movie, drug bust kind of thing. So I thought that was pretty cool, and the action scenes are great. I could have used maybe a little bit more practical effects. Like you'll notice in a lot of scenes, it is just CGI blood, which I hate. But they do it in such a way, they really stylize it with a lot of the scenes that they show in like slow motion under the drug view kind of thing. So I guess you can forgive it in that sense, because there's a heightened feel of reality to it or something like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's no comparison between the two. I mean, if you're going to choose between Judge Dredd and Dredd, this is the movie you want. I mean, there's no competition. It's a badass movie. So I am glad that it is doing so well in home video sales. It's kind of a big surprise hit, at least on video, and hopefully that will mean a sequel, which would be great. I want to see where they would take this vision of Judge Dredd. I think it would be very interesting. One thing it kind of felt like to me, and I don't think I'm alone here, but it almost kind of felt like a pilot for like an HBO show, like an hour and a half long pilot. I think it would actually be really, really fucking awesome as a TV show. I mean, I would tune into that every week. I honestly would. I'd even get HBO for that. That's how good it is. But either way, I hope there is a sequel. But anyway, if you haven't seen Dredd, I do highly recommend seeing it. If you haven't seen Judge Dredd, don't rush out to see it. Only if you're a Stallone fan. But this one, it's really something. One of the under the radar movies of this year. Maybe my only complaint, at least about the DVD itself, is that you'll notice it's a DVD, or no, it's a Blu-ray and 3D Blu-ray combo. They don't give you a choice. You can't just get DVD. You have to get the 3D Blu-ray and the Blu-ray, which I think is a rip-off. Maybe only because, it didn't sell as well as it did, so like we may as well put it in one, but, you're paying as much for the 3D and Blu-ray combo than you would for just a Blu-ray, which I think is a little unfair. But anyway, regardless of that, I'd highly recommend checking this movie out. Real awesome action, real badass character, good time. So, that's my review. Thanks for watching.